is my audience. I'm going to watch my speech, as well as the dog. All right, my name is James Runge. I'm doing my informative speech on the 11th President of the United States, James Knox Polk. Start out with a quote from him. It says, "No president who performs his duties faithfully and conscientiously can have any leisure." He was known as a workaholic, so that's a good quote by him. He accomplished a lot while he was in office. Starting with his early life, he was born in North Carolina. He was the oldest of 10 children. His father was a farmer. When he got older, his family ended up moving to Tennessee, where his father owned a lot of land, a lot of slaves. He was a sickly kid. He developed gallstones when he was about 17. Had to get him surgically removed. No anesthesia at the time or anything like that, so you can imagine how painful that was. He wasn't very studious. In fact, when he was 18, he hardly knew how to read or write. He did, at that time, hit the books pretty hard, and he ended up going to North Carolina, the University of North Carolina, where he got his degree with honors in mathematics and classics. After that, he studied law. He became a lawyer. Was a lawyer for a while. Started getting into politics, and Andrew Jackson was actually a family friend. So once he did get into politics, he pretty much followed Andrew Jackson's kind of form of government or democracy, his Democratic, what they called Jacksonian Democrat. Anyway, so he was called Young Hickory as opposed to Old Hickory, which what they called Andrew Jackson. He got into when he got into politics, he was in the House of Representatives. He was the Speaker of the House. Then he was the governor of Tennessee. The election of 1844 was coming up. The Democrats didn't have a candidate at the time, so they chose James Polk just kind of as like a dark horse candidate. They didn't have really much to choose from at the time. He ended up winning that election, which was against Henry Clay, who was a Whig. When he got into office, he made some promises, which he followed through with. For one, he said he was going to do one term and then get out. And while he was in office, he was going to cut tariffs, which he did. He recreated the U.S. Treasury. He did that, and then he was going to gain the Oregon Territory from the British at the time. He was a firm believer in manifest destiny, the idea that the U.S. needed to and was destined to move all the way to the Pacific Ocean. So while he was in office at the time, there was a territory in the Pacific Northwest that was pretty much unclaimed. There were settlers from the United States as well as settlers from Britain, and so James Polk wanted that land for the U.S., and he threatened essentially Britain and said, "We want all that land all the way up to the 54th parallel, or we're going to go to war with you." Well, Britain didn't want to go to war with the U.S. again. So they ended up compromising, essentially splitting it in half, and at the 49th parallel, so below that was U.S. territory, and above that was British territory, which is now Canada. Another big thing that James Polk did while he was in office was he annexed Texas, so Texas became a state while James Polk was in office. But after that happened, there was some dispute there as well with some land. So Mexico believed that their land went all the way up to the Nueces River. The U.S. believed that their land went down to the Rio Grande. Well, so the U.S. sent troops down just above the Rio Grande and said, basically sending there to protect their land. Well, Mexico took that as, well, they're invading our land, so they had crossed the Rio Grande and attacked U.S. soldiers. Well, James Polk went to Congress and said, we've been attacked, we need to go to war with Mexico, and Congress agreed. So they went to war with Mexico, which was known as the Mexican-American War. It lasted about 2 years. Of course, the U.S. won, got the land all the way down to the Rio Grande for Texas, as well as acquiring the Southwest and California, which is now California and which is now Arizona and New Mexico, thereby extending the U.S. territory all the way to the Pacific Ocean, which is what it would look like afterward, which is now part of about 11 states. So he fulfilled manifest destiny, and that was pretty much the big thing for him. And so he did do one last thing right before he got out of office. He created the Department of Interior. He did his one term, got out. Unfortunately, right after he got out of office, he developed cholera and died 3 months after he got out of office. He's buried at the state capitol in Nashville, Tennessee. So pretty much he's an underrated president. A lot of people don't know much about him or what he did for the country as far as expanding it. There's some other ideas that he was kind of like a ruthless, misleading kind of person as well, which may be why a lot of people don't talk about him. But he did expand the U.S. all the way to the Pacific Ocean and followed through with his promises. And there's some references I used for my information: whitehouse.gov, history.com, britannica.com. And so that's James Polk.